this I have to bring up, which is the similarities. You're good friends. You've been good friends since high school. And there are some similarities. Both your fathers in the business. You lost your father at an early age. It's a very sad story. He died performing at a Friars Club roast on stage. Mm-hmm. Park your carcass, and that was a loss that clearly had a huge effect on you.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, and
he says something in the documentary that I didn't know, and when I heard it, I couldn't believe it. He said that when he was a kid, he used to go to sleep with the radio on, and his mother would come in while he was sleeping and turn it off at night. And one morning he woke up and the radio was still on.
It was like 3 a.m.
3 a.m. He woke up and he said he knew at that point that his father had died.
Because your father had been sickly, and
but he was sick my whole life. You know, he was healthier from my brothers, but by the time I was born, it was not good, and he had trouble walking. So for my life, he was ill, always ill. Yeah. So I was always worried about it. So it wasn't like a premonition. I thought this was happening every day.
I remembered you, I had heard about it, and then you and I got to have a dinner once, and you told me the story, and it's absolutely unbelievable. He was on the Friars Club dais, and it's 1958, and he destroys. I mean, absolutely destroys. And he's the hit of the night.
You can listen to it. It's on YouTube.
I've listened to it. And then he goes back and he sits down at his seat and passes away. And it's weird because it's the thing that comedians talk about sometimes, almost in a wistful way. Like, I'd love to kill in front of a crowd and then just quickly go.
Yeah. And what I'm always amazed at is that he finished. You know,
he finishes.
It could happen on the way up to the mic. It could happen during, but he finished. Mm-hmm. So that's the coolest part.
And then they tried to save the evening.
The insane part. They send it. Your father. They're working on him backstage. Milton Berle says to a singer at the time,
Tony Martin,
go up there and sing
number one hit in America.
And he says, sing.
And Milton Berle didn't know what the song was. He says, go sing your hit. Tony Martin stands up and he sang, and his hit was called There's No Tomorrow.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, God.
Oh, fuck.
There's no tomorrow.
While they're working on your dad in the back.
Oh, my God.
Good God. And now... Your father, of course, lived a wonderful, I think, 170 years.
Yeah, and 98.
And was, I got to know him. He was such a beautiful man, such a lovely man, so encouraging and absolutely lovely. The first time he came on my late night show, he came out and he said, this is my first time on the show, so I'm going to mark my territory. So he walked around to the back of the show, miming peeing it. But I don't think my crowd knew what mark your territory meant. And he sat down, and it had gotten nothing. And he went, well, that completely didn't work. And that was my favorite part. My favorite part was him just saying... because any bit where you have to get up, leave the...
There's the perfect example.
Yeah.
Was Carl walking around mocking peeing great? Or the fact that your audience didn't like it, was it shitty?
Or didn't understand it? Yeah.
I'd say it was great.
Last night, I was at CBS where we shot All in the Family and all this stuff. And they had a special for Dick Van Dyke, who's 98, turning 98. And I opened the thing and introduced it and talked about how the first pilot of the Van Dyke Show was my dad did it. He started, and it was called Head of the Family, and it didn't sell. And Sheldon Leonard, who was producing the show, said, the script is great. We just need to find a better you. And that's where he got
Enter Dick Van Dyke.
And I tell that story. I told that story at the beginning.
It's funny. I've seen the footage of the original Dick Van Dyke Show, which didn't have Dick Van Dyke. I've seen the footage of your dad in that role, and it looks insane.
Yeah.
Because it's like if someone showed you Casablanca, but instead of Humphrey Bogart,
Ed Wynn.
Yeah, exactly. Going, ooh.
Doesn't that sound like a Sinatra song he never recorded? We just need to find a better you.
Yes, a better you. So he was encouraging of you being in comedy? Was he worried for you?
He didn't say anything. He never said yes or no. And so I never knew. I mean, I didn't know. It wasn't until I was like 19 and I directed a production of No Exit, of all things. It was Jean-Paul Sartre, Richard Dreyfuss was in it, and that was the first time I ever got anything from my dad, where he came backstage and he says, "That was good, no bullshit." And he looked me in the eye and said that. So the only time he ever gave me any kind of encouragement. And I went to visit him at his house then the next day, and he said, "I'm not worried about you. You're going to be okay, whatever you want to do." But I was already 19.
I saw something. I mentioned this to you once, and I feel like I failed because I can't find it. But somewhere I saw footage, because briefly you were part of a doubles act. You were partnered with Joey Bishop's son.
Yeah, Larry Bishop.
Bishop, and someone with like a Super 8 camera, right after you've done a show, maybe it's 1968, 69,
right,
takes you out onto a fire escape and interviews both of you.
Wow.
And they're talking to both of you about you having famous dads.
Yeah.
And I saw this thing and I thought, well, surely you've seen this. And then you said you've never seen it.
I've never seen it. And Larry
I'll
and
find it.
Larry and I opened at the Hungry Eye for Carmen McRae. And we were booked into all those nightclubs, the ones, the Rooster Tail in Detroit, Mr. Kelly's in Chicago, Paul's Mall, the Bitter End. We were booked into everyone. And after that run, he said, I can't do this anymore.
By the way, before that in high school, I had an act with Larry.
Yeah.
And this is funny. Al and Larry, we were in high school, and there was no such thing as an improv or any place. A guy on Cahuenga named Laird Brooks Schmidt. He looked like Ernie Kovacs.
Mm-hmm.
He opened his house. He called it Laird's Lair. So you could.
That was the thing. It was a
If that's not a pedophile.
No. Here was the rule.
Creeps right now all over America are hearing this going, that's it! It's a comedy club!
Here was the rule. You could perform there if you brought the audience. So Larry and I had to bring our friends from high school who heard the same bits at lunch. This time they had to pay $5 and sit in a guy's house.
It's in the living room.
Yeah,
the guy's living room.
It's the same thing. And they're looking at us like, oh, okay, but what is this? This was lunch. And, it's a club. And it was a guy's house. First thing I've ever seen in this city that even got strangers together at a person's house.
And how long did that guy's thing last?
Till he came.
He had a very strange proclivity. Very strange proclivity.